Today we are looking at the current UK strongest man, Paul Smith.
Now, Paul Smith, Uncle Lozzie, he is one of those athletes that fans have been saying, why isn't Paul Smith being invited to World's Strongest Man? Why is he being overlooked? But this year, he got his call up.
Paul has done so well at just going away and working hard and improving. You know, he had his first opportunity a few years back. He entered World's Strongest Man in reserve, actually ended up competing with about 2 minutes of notice, yeah. And obviously not the best prep. No. But Paul has gone away, worked hard. He's been climbing up the ladder nationally. He's now won England's Strongest Man multiple times. He's the current UK Strongest Man. His performances at Britain's Strongest Man get better every single time we see him. He's got some very good events as well. And he's bringing up that whole package slowly. He's not rushing anything. I've been impressed with the way he's done things. Mm-hmm. This will be a tough competition though for Paul, because going through the events, which we'll go through in a second, I don't feel these are Paul's strong events.
Definitely not. But before we go through that, let's look at some facts and stats about Paul Smith. So Paul has actually been competing since way back now in 2016, but he is still only 28 years old. In that time, he's earned himself one international win, which was the 2017 Ultimate Strongman Junior World Championships. And then last year, he won the title, the UK Strongest Man. Interestingly,
the year before, where he placed second at the Junior World Championships, he beat Ian Bibby and Tom Stoltman.
Mm. So you've alluded to the fact that these might not be Paul's best events, but let's go into it and look at the events that they're going to be doing in the heats, starting with the loading race.
Paul's quite nimble and quick. He's not bad at loading, but normally the loading events at World's Strongest Man, everything's a lot bigger and kind of the platform's a bit higher. It's suited to athletes with longer wingspans, taller athletes. So, you know, he could do okay if this isn't too heavy, but I think it's going to be a little bit heavier at Worlds. And I would, you know, see Paul placing probably mid to lower table on the loading.
And then the deadlift machine. Now, historically, deadlift has probably been where Paul has lost the most amount of points in competition, but he has had some recent decent performances. Like last year at the Strongman Champions League England, he actually won the deadlift ladder.
His deadlift has been improving quite steadily over the last few years. And with a deadlift ladder like that, where he's got such a strong grip, he was able to get through things a bit quicker than some of the other athletes. And he has made good, solid progress on it. The issue he's got at World's Strongest Man, he's not made enough progress on it to have like it as a banker event. So I think a bit like some of the other athletes we've spoken about, he could get 2 to 4 points. I can't see him beating the top deadlifters in there, but he's good enough to pick up a few points, just not enough points, I think, to counteract some of the weaker events he has.
Paul Smith has some great overhead events like the axle and the dumbbell, even the Viking press.
Viking press, he beat Graham Hicks recently.
Yeah, log, probably his worst overhead, and that's not to say that it's bad, but at this level of competition. So at Europe's Strongest Man, he did 3 logs. He was actually the fastest to do 3, which earned him 5th place overall. So it's not bad.
Paul's not a bad log lifter by any means. The problem for Paul is there's a lot of really good log lifters.
Yeah.
But I think he will have good tactics. I think Paul will go in there aiming to do probably 3 as fast as he can and then attempting a 4th. And if he does that, I think, again, he'll pick up some points. I just don't think he'll pick up enough points to kind of really get himself in a challenging position to get to the final. But yeah, Paul is good. He's a good, solid strongman, and he has some events that are exceptional. The problem is his exceptional events where he could pick up really good points against athletes aren't in this competition. No. And I think one of the issues is we've spoken now about his better events. Yeah. Now we've got 2 events coming where Paul will probably struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, so with the Conan Circle, he's done this a few times now. At Britain's Strongest Man, he is usually lower end of the table. At Europe's Strongest Man recently, 11 men did the Conan Circle and Paul placed 9th. It's going to depend on who he's up against in his group, of course, because it's a much smaller lineup. But with that smaller lineup, it's so hard to get your points back, isn't it, if you have poor events?
It is, and you've got to remember how many other great athletes are being added to this competition. Europe's was a great lineup, but World's Strongest Man is an epic lineup, and you're going to have athletes that, you know, we didn't even see at Europe's that would have been scoring big points. So I think, again, this one is going to be a struggle for Paul.
And then potentially even worse than the Conans for Paul will be the kettlebell throw. He did it at the Arnold UK where it was a sandbag throw, and he placed 12th out of 14 there. He did have the kettlebell throw in the similar format at the World's Strongest Man that he did in 2018, and he wasn't able to get any over. Now, he has improved so much since 2018. Don't think that's going to happen here, but he's going to need massive improvements to get decent points at Worlds.
Yeah, again, you know, hopefully his throwing has improved since then, but I don't think it will have improved enough based on what we saw him do last year to challenge and pick up any points or any serious points to put himself in a position to get to the stone off.
So I think Paul's biggest problem possibly is that the group he's going to end up in, because I think he's going to be sort of 5th, 6th placed in his group with some really tough guys in there.
Well, we know there's going to be some absolute monsters in there based on how many great athletes are competing at Worlds this year. Paul, like we said, he's improved so much over the last few years, and with a different set of events, could be a completely different story. Very similar to Kelvin de Ruyter last year, who has some events he's exceptional at. Unfortunately, last year's World's Strongest Man just didn't have them. Paul is in that boat here. You can't do anything about that. You dig deep and you go and do the best you can, and Paul will no doubt do that. But the recent performance at Europe's doesn't fill me with confidence that we're going to see too much difference going into World's Strongest Man this year. If he does find himself in the stone off, do you think he can pull off a big surprise win on those?
I mean, I've looked at his results. He's not the best stone lifter. He's not bad by any means, but there are just so many good stone lifters now. He's usually sort of mid to lower end of an international lineup table. He could get lucky though. You never know. You never know who you're going to be up against.
One thing I've said many times, World's Strongest Man, on paper things can look brutal and a group can fall apart.
We've seen
a group can look easy and it becomes really, really difficult. Nothing is guaranteed. That, however, being said, for me this year, World's Strongest Man is not going to be Paul's best competition. I think he would have loved last year with the wrecking ball hold and stuff like that. I was
going to say Hercules hold, Viking press, dumbbell, farmer's walk, car walk, yoke, something like that he would have absolutely loved to have in the heats, but unfortunately just none of it's there this year.
But he's got to learn from this experience, do the absolute best he can, dig deep, and you never know what's going to happen. We wish Paul the best of luck like we do for all the athletes. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think Paul can surprise us and make it to the final of World's Strongest Man? As always, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and we'll catch you next time. Take care.